Hey, everybody. Welcome aboard. This is Miles Lewis. You are tuned into another live edition of Anomaly-NOW, straight out of Austin, Texas. I'm your host, and it is another Wednesday. We are live, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time here in Austin, Texas, via our Anomaly Archives YouTube channel, our Twitch channel, our Instagram, our Facebook, some other places too. Thank you for joining us. If you're tuning in live, really, really thank you. If you're listening later or watching later, thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope you're doing well wherever you are, whenever you are. It's another hot day here in Austin, Texas, and despite the heat, having a good time. Really glad to be here. Thank you for joining us. There's so much to cover tonight, and I do want to remind folks that we have our new Flipboard with all the links. It's updated pretty much daily, but what I really mean to say is we have our new Anomaly Archives monthly lecture series through our Patreon account. If you are not a Patreon member, please consider becoming one. They have various tiers, $1 a month, $2 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month or higher. At the $10 a month or higher level, you get access to new live online lecture each month and the growing back catalog of past monthly lectures, and we hope you'll consider that. You can go to anomalyarchives.org for more information about that, or go over to patreon.com/anomalyarchives. That kind of looks like this, or at least this is the page for this Saturday's first inaugural monthly lecture at the Anomaly Academy cadet level of $10 a month. This is going to be a presentation by Brent Raynes on a lifetime of exploring the UFO mystery and its psychic components. Brent is no newbie to this UFO scene or the paranormal scene in general. He's a researcher, investigator, author, editor of Alternate Perceptions magazine, which is one of the longest running paranormal UFO related magazines still going. And he's a free thinker when it comes to reports of anomalous phenomena. So if you go over to patreon.com/Anomaly Archives, you'll find more there about the different membership levels, as I mentioned. And we really encourage you to sign up at the Anomaly Academy cadet level of $10 a month. I know everybody can't afford that, but anything helps. Everything helps. You can also join for free. Just get updates on what's going on. And if at some point you decide to become a paying member, that's great. Tonight, we are not going to be talking about little miniatures that people are trying to pass off as military men around a crash saucer. Don't know the full story on this yet, folks, but yes, there is this picture over here on the right, which is a black and white photo showing 3 or 4 different army men, literally like as in the literal plastic army men, military miniatures, one's childhood, perched around a supposed crashed saucer, crashed UFO. This photograph is making the rounds, and some people are buying it, others are not, and are doing a good debunk on, look, how likely these are to, in fact, just be little miniatures. Okay, so enough of that. As usual, you can go to our Flipboard, and you can find all the links that we'll be talking about here, and some others that we won't have the chance to talk about. But I'm going to dive right into what I want to share with you tonight. I am so excited and happy for the National UFO Historical Records Center in Rio Rancho, New Mexico. That's David Marler's personal archive that has grown into the collective archive of CUFOS, the Center for UFO Studies, with all the collections from NICAP and APRO. All these classic old UFO cases are being archived there. Such great collections from honorable historical researchers have made their way there. And just yesterday or the day before, actually on June 24th, the press release went out, I believe. The day after. For immediate release, Rio Rancho Public Schools and National UFO Historical Record Center announced groundbreaking partnership. This is pretty cool. I'm so happy for them. This is a great next step. It appears that the massive collection that Marler and his associates have amassed is going to be housed in some local school facilities. And they have partnered with the local schools and are going to be allowing public access to the materials and by appointment only. And this is just a great next step to give them more room to expand, obviously, because they have even more collections on the way or in the pipe, as one might say. So I'm really happy for them. This is great news. We'll have the links to this announcement and the video news accompanying that in tonight's show notes. And for all future show notes, for those that don't know, you can go to anomalyarchives.org and you can see a directory for all the past Anomaly-NOW shows, links to all the past Anomaly-NOW video shows and audio shows. And starting, I think, with when we relaunched in January 2023, and even a couple of back episodes, we have specific pages there for each episode that have all the show notes. So going forward, I'm probably not going to be putting the show notes at all the different locations or the YouTube version. But so you'll be able to click I'll put the link to the show note page that'll take you to our website. But moving right along, good and bad news in the realm of libraries. I know so many of you track what's going on, the fight to ban books, the fight for freedom of speech and freedom of access to information. And I realize this is perhaps to some a very complex issue, and maybe you don't fall on either side very strongly. Maybe you're a fence straddler, but this article over at texasobserver.org, a small town Texas librarian's big stand against book bans. In Llano County, a local librarian fought back against censorship, prompting a federal court fight and national recognition, but losing the job of her dreams. And the article says Suzette Baker from unincorporated Kingsland was feted recently by the Authors Guild in New York City as a, quote, champion of writers, unquote, the first ever recipient of a national award established to honor librarians who fight book bans. In 2022, she was fired from her job as a Llano County librarian after resisting orders to ban books and protesting against censorship. In response to Baker's story, a local mom named Layla Leah Green and other library patrons filed a federal lawsuit supported by the Authors Guild. In 2023, they won a court order that forced county officials to restore 8 of the 17 titles that had been removed from library shelves. Quote, Baker's brave defense of her community's right to read is a testament to the vital role librarians play in upholding free speech and creative expression in the face of censorship, said Mary Reisenberger, CEO of the Authors Guild, the nation's oldest and largest writers organization. Baker continues to fight for freedom of expression and is pursuing her own wrongful termination lawsuit against the Llano County officials. Still, in some ways, Baker, a mother of 5 and grandmother of 2, would rather still be working in the Kingsland Branch Library, assembling quirky displays, recommending books, and helping adults and kids access the internet. Being a small-town librarian was her dream job. The Observer spoke to her about books and censorship, and you can read the interview there over at texasobserver.org. Another blow of some significance. This is coming from techdirt.com, and thank you, Volunteer Victor, for bringing this to my attention. It does not surprise me, but it's very dismaying. 500,000 books have been deleted from the Internet Archive's lending library. This is dated Thursday, June 20th. If you found out that 500,000 books have been removed from your local public library at the demands of big publishers who refuse to let them buy and lend new copies and were further suing the library for damages, wouldn't you think that would be a major news story? Wouldn't you think maybe many people would be up in arms about it? It's happening right now with the Internet Archive, and it's getting almost no attention. Now think about this. Over 10 years ago, Google started digitizing books without the publisher's permission. They digitized thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. I don't know how many books are on Google Books website or in their cloud, but they did it knowing that they have really good, high-powered lawyers. And sure enough, 10 years later, they won the lawsuits against them. Now, as far as I understand, aside from during the pandemic, when Internet Archive opened up its open library, making it easier to access materials while people were in lockdown status due to the pandemic, that's the only time I'm aware of that they've changed or violated the status quo processes for digital collections and public libraries. Perhaps you're unaware, but in traditional public libraries, it's always been you buy 6 copies of the most popular book or however many copies they can afford, knowing that there's going to be a demand, but they can't lend more than those copies because obviously they're physical copies, and if they're not there to lend, they can't be lent out to other people. Digital copies are obviously very different. I know this sounds stupid. I'm not trying to mansplain, but a lot of people don't realize that the publishers are so draconian in this respect that they do not want to allow anything more than what is already the norm in public libraries. And as this article goes on to say, they're pretty much lobbying to end public libraries. Now, think about that for a while. Now, something more interesting and more UFO-related, paranormal-related is I was recently there's a documentary that came out in October of last year called Beyond the Light Barrier, which is also the title of the book, the autobiography it's based on, by Elizabeth Clare, a South African contactee from the 1950s whose autobiography got published at various times. And I recently finally got to watch this, and I suspected that I was really going to enjoy it, and it pains me to no end that I delayed watching this. Like I say, it came out in October of last year, and I knew from the graphics and the kitschy trailer that it was probably going to be a lot of fun. I didn't know that much about Elizabeth Clare. What I knew about her and her works came from my previous experience of Aaron Gilius's The Saucer Life podcast, his 202nd episode, or rather Encounter 202. I don't think it was his 202nd episode. It's probably his second episode in the second season of The Saucer Life. A really great podcast. I highly recommend. If you've never listened to it, check it out. You might like it. But he did an episode. It's only about 30 minutes long, very easy to digest, that goes into her books that came, and her story that came out in the 1950s, and the book Beyond the Light Barrier that was published a little later. And the copy that you see there is, I believe, the copy published much more recently. And of course, there are different edited versions of this. But going back to the movie, the documentary, I really enjoyed it. And there's a couple of reasons. There's interview footage that spans over 10 years. There were apparently initial interviews done with people involved in the case, family members, friends. There are people associated with either believers or debunkers, going back to interviews done in 2010 to 2012, and then more recently, other interviews done. And it has a lot of stock footage of note. There's a couple of things that I'm kind of curious about why they included, but it all worked really well for me. I very much enjoyed the very odd production approach. It's hard to explain, but the narrator is seen throughout, this South African man who they show times in the clips, and they show him throughout the movie, and he doesn't speak until the very end. And he, as a black man, finally reveals the significant changes made between the original manuscript and the earlier versions of the book to the versions that have been released over the last couple of decades. And even the cleaned up versions have very problematic racial overtones. Obviously, a lot of this material does and always has. But of course, this material coming out of South Africa was bound to have some problems. But yes, so there's these shots where you see the back of this egg chair that the narrator is sitting in and watching the projection of what some of the interviews It's a very different approach to filmmaking, to documentary filmmaking. But I think you'll thoroughly enjoy it, and I highly recommend it. And I may, in fact, I'm going to try to find a way to buy a copy for myself. So again, you can go to saucerlife.com and listen to Aaron Golias's commentary on this. And I think, as usual, he's spot on a lot of his analysis. I feel like there was another episode that I haven't dug up yet where he maybe went in deeper on this case and talked about the South African, I don't know if he's technically a shaman, but the elder who is himself problematic, though they don't really go into that in this. But I feel like it was Aaron Golias's other podcast maybe that went into that, but perhaps I'm misremembering. Meanwhile, that mysterious figure, Isaac Coy, is working away. This is the guy, Isaac Coy, who is the pseudonymous barrister in the UK who is constantly working with others to digitize old, rare materials, largely newsletters, periodicals, but also books dealing with UFOs, and also making finding aids in this form of databases, digitizing those texts, OCRing, optical character recognition for those texts. And as we mentioned in a previous episode recently, Stephen Greer had uploaded his UFO archive, his digitized materials, and lo and behold, Isaac has helped AFU in Sweden, Archives for the Unexplained, amass those materials and has created a handy-dandy finding aid to help navigate what he describes as a very clunky, hard to navigate archive website that Stephen Greer has put up. That's Stephen Greer's archive is dpiarchive.com. Meanwhile, I think we also last week or the week before reported on his having created a Valet bot. Well, he's working on a Grant Cameron bot. Grant Cameron uploaded all his archives. Isaac Coy created yet another chat bot based on the works of Grant Cameron. Meanwhile, you all might also want to check out the Journal for the Study of Religious Experience. They've got a free online version of their current issue, which is Volume 9, number 1 from 2003, but it was only just released a week or so ago. Of course, this is all available in PDF format online at their website with articles such as Exploring the Connections Between Religious Experience, Spiritualism, and Women's Rights by Sarah Porch-Lee. Yes, The Levitations of St. Joseph of Cupertino Explained, ? By Bob Ricard. Bob Ricard, of course, being famous in the 14 Times circles. Oh, and Michael Grosso has an article, Pseudo-Skepticism, a Case Study. And there's other material there that you can check out as well. This is all free as far as I know. Meanwhile, we have been reporting on the ongoing controversies related to geoengineering and, weather modification. Meanwhile, Futurism.com's The Bite section has a titled article, Oops, Geoengineering Trick to Cool Brutal Heat Could Spike Temperatures Elsewhere, Scientists Say. You don't say. I'm shocked. Really? How could this be? I mean, really? Brighter clouds ahead. Researchers are warning that geoengineering efforts to help cool temperatures in California could trigger heat waves in Europe, a scary implication given the sheer lack of regulation controlling such measures across the globe. It mentions this article that we were reporting on previously. As The Guardian reports, scientists have suggested spraying aerosols into clouds over the ocean to cool down the surface below, a practice called marine cloud brightening. As the name suggests, the idea is to brighten clouds to make them reflect more of the sun's radiation back into space. Last month, a team of University of Washington researchers attempted to do just that in the San Francisco Bay using a machine that sprays tiny sea salt particles amid criticism from environmentalists. The experiment was later shut down by city officials, citing health concerns. Now, as detailed in a study published in the journal Nature Climate Change today, it turns out the practice could have unintended consequences. I mean, come on, of course it's going to have such. While under present-day conditions it may reduce heat exposure significantly, the, quote, same interventions under mid-century warming minimally reduce or even increase heat stress in the western United States and across the world, unquote. In other words, while it may work now, given worsening conditions, that equation may flip on its head by the year 2050, highlighting the potential risks of geoengineering. There's more to this article over at Futurism.com. I also wanted to acknowledge this episode, this article that I don't think we've covered. I know we've covered a number of articles relating to lucid dream, including tech that is an attempt to induce lucid dreams or make them easier to have. Our volunteer Victor had brought this to my attention some months back, but I somehow overlooked it and was recently rediscovering it. And this is over at fortune.com. Lucid Dream Startup says engineers can write code in their sleep. Well, work may never be the same. Yes, I can imagine CEOs, corporations being like, now we can have workers working even while they're sleeping. Yeah, well, this is from November of last year. The article is now paywalled. I exhausted my viewing of it earlier, but I believe the company is called Halo, Halo, and is talking about using a band device with ultrasound beaming into areas of the brain that they believe or have evidence for that would activate consciousness during the sleep state and induce lucid dreaming. And of course, the next stage is control of that state. But they're basically hedging their bets, of course, and saying, well, it still requires a lot of other, techniques to get to that point. So no dream recorder or dream inducer yet, but, they're working on it, right? And who knows what we don't know about what's still secret tech. Lastly, this is sad news, and it's being reported on by Jack Brewer via the Expanding Frontiers Research.org nonprofit website. Police report suicide victim was fascinated with Skinwalker-Ranch. A month or so back, I think, or several months back, EFR and others were reporting on the fact that there was missing person and found body near Skinwalker-Ranch. And sure enough, it appears that this person had become obsessed with, fascinated by, and had been scouting it out, maybe trying to find a way onto the property, and unfortunately took their own life. The individual's name was Andrew Crow, and, quote, he was formerly of California and 61 years old. Records obtained suggest he parked his trouble-prone Harley-Davidson on the side of the remote road before walking away. 38 special in his possession. Police believe he used the gun to end his life. The revolver was found at the feet of the deceased, 5 rounds of ammunition, one of them spent, still in the cylinder. He had left a suicide note and a number of handwritten pages, including some drawings, and these were all addressed to Thomas Winterton, who is, quote, among those who financially benefit most from their involvement in Phenomenon. Uintah County records obtained by Expanding Frontiers Research indicate he was issued over $5,800 for the 3-day conference in 2023. We've reported on the efforts by EFR to bring to light the fact that what they feel strongly are fanciful speculations, non-science nonsense, and paranormal claptrap, and shrouded in a veil of science is being supported literally to the tune of $215,000 in 2023 by the county there for this Phenomenon. I would just say it's a very interesting article. It's worth a read. Obviously, Jack Brewer is a very much just the facts man kind of person. With that, I do have to say, if you or somebody is experiencing a crisis and has suicidal thoughts, please contact this number. National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is at 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. Or you can, I believe, text or quick dial 988. There's a ton of great stuff you can find at the Flipboard and our Anomaly Archives website. We've got these great lectures coming up starting this Saturday with Brent Raynes, and then next month in July, we've got Professor WHAM, who's just given me the title to her presentation. I don't have it handy, but I'm so excited by what she's going to be talking about, and we'll be publicizing that soon. And then, of course, in August, we've got Joshua Cutchin giving a lecture, and more to come after that. You can, of course, go to anomalyarchives.org and find more about that, or patreon.com/anomalyarchives. We'd appreciate your support. And, if you'd like to drop us a line, you can reach us at our P.O. Box here in Austin, Texas. That's Anomaly Archives, P.O. Box 152252, Austin, Texas 78715. That's Anomaly Archives, P.O. Box 152252, Austin, Texas 78715. And we have voicemail. We'd love to hear from you. That's area code 512-842-9046. Or you can reach me via email at contact@anomalyarchives.org. Well, thank you so much for tuning in or listening to the rebroadcast. We could really use your help. So if you would please consider hitting that like and subscribe and get notifications, it helps us a lot with YouTube and other social media. Or if you know of folks who are interested in this subject matter and you think that they would benefit or enjoy our commentary and material, please share that with them. Thank you so much, and we'll see you later.
I'm Agent Morris with the NSA.
There is something real here.
Did you believe that our government is in possession of UAPs?
Absolutely, based on interviewing over 40 witnesses over 4 years.
And where?
I know the exact locations, and those locations were provided to the Inspector General and from which to the intelligence committees. I actually had the people with the first-hand knowledge provide a protected disclosure to the Inspector General. Biologics came to some of these recoveries. Yeah.
Those could represent exquisite new adversary technology.
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
The government is covering up some level of its knowledge and understanding about what some of those things are.
The Soul Foundation, which just announced a new initiative for UFO research and policy.
It's nuts, man. I mean, we're just small-town buds who saw a UFO in the woods. I mean, now we're hanging out with the government.
Wow. What floor were you guys on?
Thank you, everybody. Go to patreon.com/Anomaly Archives, and you can sign up, and you can see this Saturday's online lecture by Brent, Raynes, A Lifetime of Exploring the UFO Mystery and its Psychic Components. Good night.